All right, so check it out. What's the difference between half diminished and fully diminished? We're going to be separating the two and figuring out which is which. Let's go. All right, so I'm going to try to break this down as quick and as clear as I possibly can. So you may have heard me talk about half diminished before in the past when we talk about the modes. We were in the key of C major, the Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, and Locrian. So for the Locrian scale, we talked about the half diminished chord or the half diminished triad that goes along with that. So we had that half diminished chord. Okay, so and then we're back up to the one. Okay, so we have the half diminished chord. So we have the root, the flat 5, and the flat 7. We have a minor 3 too. So let's just spell out the whole entire chord. So we have 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. That's the half diminished chord, half diminished. Okay, so if we want to extend it as well, we can play that 7. I'm just omitting the 3 for now. So we have a half diminished chord. There's another way to play that on the bass. We can do a different inversion of that. So I'm just leaving out. So we have the root, we have the 7, and we have the flat 5. Okay. Only thing we're not playing is the 3. Okay. So we can play that in another way, really. So we can, yeah, we can do that. We want to play every single note inside of that, every single chord tone inside of that chord. So we have the root, flat 5, 7, flat 3. Okay, so that's the way you play the half diminished, and the scale that goes on top of that is the Locrian scale. This, you know, that's the most common. That's the most common scale to play on top of the half diminished chord or the half diminished scale. Okay, so there's another version of a half diminished scale that you can play as well, but we'll go deeper into that in the next lesson. So I want to just get the difference between the diminished, the fully diminished, and the half diminished. So that's the half diminished. So one more thing about the half diminished scale. I know previously we talked about the melodic minor scale and the mode that it contains inside of it. And there's one mode or one scale that you can use that fits very well on top of this half diminished chord, and that is the Locrian sharp 2. That fits very well on top of that as well. So we'll go over that in a later date, like I said. But anyway, next, the diminished scale, though, the fully diminished scale. What is that all about? So like I mentioned before about the half diminished triad or the half diminished arpeggio, we're in the key of B, where we're doing this starting on B. Our tonic or our root note is B. So that's our half diminished chord. So what we want to do, we have 1, flat 3, flat 5, flat 7. So with a diminished or fully diminished scale or arpeggio, you have the 1, flat 3, flat 5, and a double flat 7. So that means you lower that 7th note one more time. So it may be a little easier to put this in relation to C. So let's move this up a half step so you can see the chord tones afterwards. So we have C, let's start the note, our root note on C, flat 3, flat 5, double flat 7. So now you have C, E flat, G flat, and B double flat. Okay, so if that makes any sense. So I'll write it on the screen for you. So it'll say B double flat, but that's equals to the key of A or the note A. So we have technically you have C, E flat, G flat, A to make that diminished arpeggio or diminished 7 arpeggio. So the scale that goes along with that is pretty simple. We're going to use a formula whole half, whole half. We're just going to walk it all the way up until we get to the next note or to the next C. So we have C, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Okay, so you see the pattern, So what I like to do is, or how I like to find this pattern or easy way to play this pattern is to move this down a half step and play half whole, half whole, half whole. Okay, so that's the easiest way for me to think about it. In the beginning, this is how I transferred or converted this information. You're still doing the same exact formula, you're just starting on the note below where you're starting from, or your starting note. So Love this scale. So diminished scale, diminished chord. The difference between that, you got a half diminished chord, half diminished, and then fully diminished, you're going to move that 7 down a half step. See the difference? So you have da, and then da. Okay, so that's the difference between a half diminished and a fully diminished. So we're going to be going more in depth with this entire concept at a later date. So I just wanted to show you the difference between the two, because a lot of people get confused about half diminished and fully diminished and where to use it and how to use it and what chord it goes over. So we're going to be talking about that a lot more. So this is the introduction to half diminished and fully diminished. Make sure your notes are coming out clean, clear, and precise. See you next time.